Dark chocolate sourdough bread with dark chocolate chips. Is that even a thing? Can that be done? I mean, it sounds like a contradiction. We're talking about sourdough and then like a sweet bread product like dark chocolate chip. How does that work? This is a fun project. And the first question that you've got to have in your mind is, well, is it sweet or is it savory? And it leans more towards the sweet side of a bread product, but it is not like a sweet, sticky, kind of overwhelming, sweet bread. It has a really nice balance of, just sweet enough with just the right amount of chocolate chips in it, so you get those little extra bursts of chocolate. You can also add peanut butter chips, like Reese's peanut butter chips, and then you've got a whole different animal of bread, and it's pretty amazing. I choose to use a standing mixer for this type of dough. And in the description, the recipe's laid out. Not the method, we'll go through the method in the video, but your ingredients, the percentages of flour, the 3 different flours, all the stuff. It's down there so you can scale it up or down to make your own chocolate chip bread. So I use a standing mixer because when we go to incorporate the chocolate, it makes your life way easier. Can it be done without the mixer? Yes. But you're gonna get a serious workout when it's time to get the chocolate in. Let's jump in. What's first? Well, we're gonna go in the bowl, we're gonna zero it out, we're gonna add our water. This is very similar to any standard sourdough oval or round or sandwich bread that you would make that's in the channel. This is really similar to the do-it-all dough plus some other ingredients, some variation. So we've got water, starter, we're gonna mix it together, get it creamy, kind of get the starter distributed, broken down into our water, and then we're adding flour. There's 3 types of flour in this recipe. There is bread flour, which makes up the bulk of the flour, and then all-purpose and whole wheat. And the all-purpose kind of makes the dough just a little bit softer, and then the wheat gives it just a different flavor and a little bit of texture. I guess you could go all bread flour if you wanted to, if you don't have whole wheat and all-purpose to include in the recipe. Your choice. Now I'm going to mix it in the standing mixer and get it all incorporated, scrape down the sides, mix it again, just create a sticky mass of dough in here. And now we have a 30-minute phase of after it's all mixed and it's sticky and you scrape the bowl down, we're going to cover it with a towel and just let it kind of autolyse for 30 minutes. And that's just a process of hydrating our flour and water and starter together. I know I put the starter in with it, but starter is flour and water, so I include it. I don't put my starter in later. Now, while this is hanging out, we're gonna get a pot going, a little double boiler situation. And we've got our cocoa powder, which is gonna flavor our bread chocolatey. And then we need a fat, and I'm using coconut oil here. I guess you could use canola, but I like the subtle coconut flavor that it gives to the bread. And then also the coconut oil is a saturated fat, and at room temperature, it solidifies, where canola oil is gonna give your bread a different texture. I feel like with the coconut oil, it's got just a moister, kind of lighter texture than if you were to use canola oil. But your call. I recommend the coconut. This is extra virgin coconut oil that you get in the gigantic jar like this one at Costco. So double boiler, I just bring the water to a boil, put your little bowl on it. It's got our cocoa powder and our coconut oil weighed out, and we're just melting everything together and making it into essentially what's gonna look like a chocolate syrup. This is gonna make it possible to get the chocolate into the bread. If you go like cocoa powder and like just the fat, like separate, you're not gonna get the same result. And it's gonna be a lot harder to get it incorporated. This is gonna make it so it smoothly gets distributed into our dough. Spatula, mix it together, make sure there's no little clumps. I killed the fire and it's just hanging out here. We don't wanna put it into our dough hot. Touch it and make sure that it's body temperature or less. And after the dough has been sitting for its 30 minutes, absorbing water, we're gonna put the chocolate coconut oil mixture right into the bowl. Scrape as much of it as you can in there. Sometimes I actually weigh out a couple extra grams of coconut oil and cocoa powder because I'm always gonna have just a little bit left behind in the bowl. And from here, after 30 minutes of letting your flour and water and starter, be mixed in autolyse, we're gonna add the chocolate coconut oil mixture and our salt and our sugar. And there's a decent amount of sugar in here to, give the bread some of its sweetness. The salt, if you're unfamiliar with bread baking recipes, the salt is really important. And even though we're leaning into like a sweeter style of bread, if you leave the salt out or if you cut it back, your bread's gonna taste super flat. And it's not gonna be like, it's just gonna be missing something, and it's gonna be the salt. There's not enough salt here to make the dough salty. It's enough salt, 2%, to make the dough taste complete. In the mixer, salt, sugar, the coconut oil, chocolate, or cocoa powder mixture, and we're turning on our machine and we're gonna mix it together. And low speed, let it go for a minute or so, and then scrape down the sides, scrape down the dough hook, maybe get that bowl scraper into the bottom, try and turn over some of the dough. Just so you can help it get combined a little sooner. We don't wanna have to mix this forever, so maybe when I was doing this, I did this like 3 times until it looked smooth and chocolatey. Like this. This is kind of the end result that you're looking for. And now from here, we're out of the mixing bowl and I'm putting it into a different container to let it, hang out. From here, we're going by hand and we're gonna knock out I'm gonna call this in the mix that we did with the chocolate and the sugar and the salt, our first stretch and fold, even though it happened in the mixer. There's gonna be 3 more. They're gonna happen by hand. So 30 to 45 minutes later, and with this dough, I lean more towards that 45-minute mark, 40-minute mark, just to give it more time to relax, let all that gluten develop. And the first one's gonna feel the stickiest, or I guess technically this is the second one, but here it comes out of the bowl. Get your hands a little bit wet so the dough doesn't stick to you, but not so wet that the dough doesn't stick to itself. And this is the regular stretch and fold technique that you do for sourdough round or an oval or sandwich bread. We're creating tension. We're trying to develop elasticity in our dough. So I always do my stretch and folding in midair, not in the bowl. I feel like we can get better gluten development when we can manipulate it more versus pick up a corner and fold it in, pick up a corner and fold it in. That whole method that happens in a bowl, I don't do it. This works better. So, pick it up, stretch, tuck, fold, rotate it. We're looking for a nice smooth surface with good surface tension, and then it goes back in the bowl, cover it, and we're gonna let it hang out for another 30 to 45 minutes. Comes out again, wet hands, wettish, dampish hands. Stretch it, tuck it, fold it, tuck it, fold it, tuck it, fold it. Work your way around. This is a quick thing. We're just looking to reestablish that tension so the dough is pulling on itself. And it should feel different now. It should look and feel more supple and more stretchy. Put back in the bowl, covered, another 30, 45 minutes, and this will be our last time. So last time, stretch it, fold it, tuck it, manipulate it, create some tension, get it pulling on itself, and that's it. So back in the container and we're hanging out for 4 to 6 hours. Bulk fermentation period, which is what? It is the doubling of the dough in volume. It's gonna produce gases, it's gonna expand, and we're looking for it to really grow in size. Now, once it has done this, now if you made a double batch, you will be dividing it. If you made just a little single batch, you're just gonna shape the little single batch. If you're dividing a double, I like to, take it out of the bowl, weigh your bowl, and then try and eyeball it, so you're not making a whole bunch of adjustments, and, make 2 equal portions of dough. Now, I'm using kind of a double envelope fold to stretch these, and look, I have one right here. So we can kind of do this together, and we look at the one that's the B-roll too. I just put a little bit of bread flour on here. This is a 400 gram batch that I have here. The one in the video is an 800 that's getting divided twice. So when I say 800 or 400, what am I referring to? My total flour weight. Of course, this guy weighs more with the chocolate and the salt and the sugar and the starter and the water, right? But as far as shaping, we're adding an inclusion. What the heck is an inclusion? It's our chocolate chips or peanut butter chips or whatever. I have both. I know, I'm making a combo. But we're gonna, kind of open up our dough and we're gonna sprinkle our inclusions. That's the filling, the stuff that goes inside. And it's kind of hard to imagine this, but if you can, right now, the dough that I'm exposing, like when I put the peanut butter and chocolate chips into this guy, eventually they're gonna be right under the surface of my finished loaf that I'm gonna score. So I don't wanna go too crazy with what I put in this first layer of inclusions of chocolate chips and peanut butter chips. And yes, these are Reese's peanut butter chips. They're great. I like them. Okay, I've got kind of a rough rectangle here. I'm gonna go to the middle. I'm gonna go to the middle. And now I didn't overlap them. I just brought them together. And now I have a 12 o'clock and a 6 o'clock side. I'm gonna go the majority, because this is eventually gonna be like the inside, the interior, most interior aspect portion of my dough. I'm gonna be most generous here with my chips. Chips? Yep, they are chips. And then I'm gonna take my, I'm gonna go 6 o'clock side because the side's a little flat. I'm gonna bring my 6 o'clock to the middle. And so these chips should end up over that fold that I just made. And then my 12 o'clock over the 6. And now I can put my seam side down. So kind of real similar to like a regular double envelope fold that you would do for a sandwich loaf or an oval, but maybe a slight modification. And then I'm bringing tension into my dough, kind of tucking the ends under to get it to anchor on itself. And that's it, like we're kind of ready to go. Tomorrow when this goes to be baked, it's gonna feel dense, it's gonna feel heavy because we have all this fat in here from the coconut oil. I mean, it's not that much, but you're gonna, if you're used to making a regular oval, when you go to right side up this, like in this B-roll, so here we go, here's these two guys the next day, you can see like as I score it, how dense and heavy it is. But don't worry, have no fear. It's gonna be a light, fluffy, amazing chocolate chip sourdough bread. Just don't be surprised when you notice, like, oh my God, this thing's a brick. It's gonna feel that way. I like a lined banneton. You can go unlined, but you do risk making it a chocolate banneton, even if you do use rice flour. And I recommend using rice flour. Come here. To coat your dough. Dry out the surface, it's gonna make it easier to score it. And then we can go banneton. Lined with a handkerchief, nice thin, 99-cent Walmart handkerchief, Target, I don't know, something like that. Maybe give it a couple stitches just to give it a little bit more surface tension here in the basket. But the basket is here to support it, so if it's pulling apart, it's okay. Okay, back to the B-roll. We're going in hot cast iron. How hot? Well, same as always, if you're making an oval, you should have your cast iron pot. I love this Lodge cast iron 5.5 quart. I think it's a combo cooker. And I preheated at 450 for about 15 minutes or so, get it ripping hot. And then we're going bread into the hot cast iron. This thing's great because the lid can be the bottom and then the deep side can be the top, which makes loading super easy. And we're going in the oven, same, it's at 450. We're gonna bake it for 45 minutes covered. That's like that is my regular method of baking sourdough bread. I know some people bake for 30 and then they take it out and try not to burn it for another 10 or 15 minutes. That's cool if you want to do that. I think especially with the chocolate bread, keep it covered as long as you can because when it splits and that ear opens up and stands up, it's going to reveal some of those chocolate and peanut butter chips, if you did peanut butter chips, and you do risk kind of like caramelizing those. Covered in this instance is a good plan. But here it is. This is at the end of 45 minutes. It's coming out, but it's gonna go back in because I do want to get a little more color on it. Beautiful loaf of bread, great oven spring. You can see what I'm talking about. So there's the dark chocolate chips. They got a little roasty. On this loaf, you can see the peanut butter chips, also like a little bit caramelized. Back in the oven, finish coloring it up, maybe get it a little darker, whatever your preference is. It's cooked. Like you don't need to take a temperature. It's been 45 minutes. And then cooling it. These guys need to cool a bit longer than a regular sourdough bread. There's all that fat, all that chocolate in there. And if you cut into it, even after 2 hours, it's gonna be so warm that you're gonna smear all the chocolate like through every stroke of the blade. And that's cool, and it makes like kind of an interesting like marbling on each slice, almost like you're spreading chocolate chips on every slice. And you can see it in this image of the, how the chocolate's smeared on here. And that's fine. Waiting more than 2 hours is kind of hard to do when you're smelling chocolate chip bread. And especially if you're used to waiting like an hour and a half or 2 hours for regular sourdough, you're probably better off waiting maybe 3 hours. But whatever you want to do. I think it eats a little better when it's cooled off a little bit more too, the warmer it is, just the more intense the sweetness is. So the cooler it is, the more subdued the sweetness is. But whatever your preference is. So here it is, beautiful slices, chocolate chip bread. You can see the distribution of the chocolate chips in here. This one with the peanut butter chips, they're a little harder to see. They're so small that, you know, they just kind of disappear a little bit. Obviously, you know, peanut butter chips aren't regular peanut butter. They do have like a stabilizer in them that helps them to hold their shape. But if you slice it when it's hot, you will smear peanut butter on your bread too, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's it. Recipe in the description. Scale it to whatever size you like. I think a 400 to 500 gram batch, so your total flour weight is 400 to 500 grams, fits really nice in a 10-inch oval or round. You could make this into a sandwich loaf. I could make a case for that. That would be interesting. But then you'd have to proof it at room temperature. Nah, cold proofing's good. And as far as cold proofing goes, minimum of 8 hours in the fridge. Maximum of 48. I baked one this morning that had been in the fridge for 48 hours. It was great, still in solid shape. No change with the sugar that's in the dough. It's not like it weeps or breaks down. Just still beautiful, solid. This guy was from this morning. And I gave him away. Can you believe it? Yep, that guy was a gift. Always make two so you can give one away. If you're gonna go through the effort here, making two is a good plan. If you try and stuff a double batch in the KitchenAid mixer, like the size one that I have, you're gonna struggle. It's gonna really fill the whole volume of the bowl. At 1,000 grams, it's almost not doable. 1,000 grams of total flour weight. At 800 grams, it'll fit, but you're gonna have to manage it. You're gonna have to turn it off and scrape it down. So that's it. Double chocolate chip, peanut butter chip, double chocolate chip, peanut butter chip, sourdough bread. Dark chocolate chip, sourdough bread. That's what it is. So add this to your repertoire. It's just a small lateralization from what you're normally doing. Not a whole lot of change to your method, just a couple extra ingredients. This is a great like special occasion kind of bread. It'll blow people's mind when you make it for them, because nobody knows what to expect when you tell them that it's dark chocolate chip sourdough bread. But then when they try it, they're like, oh, yes.